right, all right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today and happy Thursday. Hope everyone is looking forward to a long Memorial Day weekend this weekend. I'm Katie Golland, Senior Director of Product Marketing and Enablement, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jessica Fields.
Hey, I'm Jessica, VP of Engineering here. I'm super excited to share a little bit more in this three-part MCP series that we've been doing. We have some great things to show.
Yeah, this has been a fun series. Thank you for those of you who have joined us for a few of these. This is our third in our series of webinars where we've been focused on how you can connect Swoogo to your AI tools. So thank you again for those attending today and for those of you who've been repeat attendees over the series. We are so excited to dive into the data topic today a little bit deeper with a little bit of a different spin. We're going to focus on using data to prove how your events are driving revenue. But before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. First, please feel free to ask questions. We do have chat. We will have some Swoogo team members in there helping to answer questions as we go. And then we will save some time at the end for any questions we don't get to. We will record the webinar and we will definitely be sending it out as a follow-up. And then third, I know there's a good mix of companies out there, some using Swoogo today and others who might be new to Swoogo. So just a quick, who are we? Swoogo is an event management and marketing platform for running events of all sizes. So from simple to complex under one hood. We power your digital event experiences from your event site to your personalized registration pathways, all the way to your on-site experience. So again, thanks for taking the time to join us today. And let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. So for those of you who are new to this webinar series, welcome. I'll fill you in on our newest innovation. So at the end of March, we launched an MCP server. And for those of you thinking, what the heck is an MCP server? I'm sure you're not alone. I totally get it. AI is evolving faster than anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I think we're all just trying to keep up with the terminology, vibe coding, MCP, all the things. So just to kind of set the foundation, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which essentially means it's a standard way that you can securely connect your AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude to other tools you're using like Swoogo. So the server acts as a bridge or a translator for your Swoogo event data. It translates the API into a language that your AI tools can understand. So this means that you can use Claude or ChatGPT to ask questions about your events, like think, what's our current registration count? Ask it. Give me a breakdown of attendees by seniority. Tell me what sessions still have capacity that we need to fill. So you can ask it in natural language and get those instant answers in real time. The MCP server works alongside any tool that supports MCP connectors. So today we're going to demo within Claude, but as long as the tool you're using allows for or has MCP compatibility, you can plug Swoogo in. An important thing to note is that your permissions you have in Swoogo are the same as what you have access to in your AI tool. So instead of going in and accessing a report in Swoogo, which you can still do today, do it all the time. I'll go in and I have my reports in Swoogo I love to check. Now you're just getting the unlock of being able to access that data in a secure way and retrieve it directly through your AI tool. So you don't have to slice and dice the data. You can just ask in that natural language format and you can get the answers you need in real time. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is really one of the real unlocks with this MCP server. Not only that you can access Swoogo data directly within your AI tool, but also that other tools in your tech stack have also built MCP servers. So what does that mean? Not only can you get that event data, but you can also layer in data from places like HubSpot or Salesforce. So Swoogo is the place where you're hosting your events, you're tracking your registrations, your attendance, you're seeing what sessions are resonating with your prospects and customers, but you have a whole wealth of data also living in your MarTech and CRM solutions. So you may have a way to combine this data today. For us, we typically go through our marketing ops team. You might have a business intelligence team, but that can take a while to get your hands on a report where you're actually combining your event data with your engagement data and your revenue data. So today we're going to dive deeper into how with the MCP server, you can combine all of that data into one place. So you might have that engagement data in HubSpot and that revenue and account data from Salesforce. You can bring that all into what we're going to be demoing on today is Claude. So that's why you see Claude here. But again, you can use any AI tool that is MCP compatible. And just a quick note, while we're talking about 3 tools here today, Swoogo, HubSpot, and Salesforce, you don't need to stop there. Look to see what other tools in your tech stack have also built an MCP server. This is meant to be educational. The series is meant to help you kind of think outside the box. And really today is focus on the tools that you can use to tell that revenue story. So before I pass it to Jessica, because she's going to demo some of this live, I just wanted to take a look at what you can layer into your event data through these sources within HubSpot and within Salesforce. So if you're using HubSpot today, you could be using it as a CRM to manage your contacts and leads. You might be tracking lifecycle stages or job titles of your contacts. So maybe you have job titles living in HubSpot, but you don't necessarily ask that on your registration form. So think about connecting those in one place with your AI tool. You might be running communications like pre-event communications or post-event nurture campaigns, or maybe other emails like newsletters or product launch emails. So those engagement metrics are really important to bring in as well. Or if you're like us, we have forums on our website where we're capturing interest. So you can see who's requested or submitted maybe a demo request, or maybe who's interested in your pricing. All of that flows back into HubSpot as well. Or you could be using lead scoring or tracking campaign attribution in HubSpot. So now let's move to Salesforce. On the Salesforce side, or you could be using Marketo or Eloqua. I looked, both of those also have MCP servers as well. So while we're demoing Salesforce today, don't feel like you are in that lane. If you're using Eloqua or Marketo, feel free to use your AI tool and connect with those as well. So in these tools, you're most likely tracking account information across both your prospects and your customers, maybe your audience segments, your opportunities and pipeline metrics. So that's where you're really getting into the revenue side. How many opportunities do you have open? How much is in pipeline? The contacts that are part of these deals. So if you have multiple contacts that are part of a customer account or a prospect account, activities that are happening across your sales touch points, and ultimately which of these accounts are turning into customers, and then the revenue associated with that business. So really after your event, what is happening? How much is turning into pipeline? How much is turning into actual customers? Are those customers upgrading? So let's talk about bringing all those sources together in one single place. And enough talking, I'm going to now hand it over to Jessica, and Jessica can show this off in real time.
All right, thanks, Katie. I will also be talking as well, but trying to show a couple of these prompts. So let's dive in. I just want to show something briefly too. This, again, the third one in our series. We haven't touched on this very much, but I want to show where you can set these up is kind of in the same place as the Swoogo connector. So you can see I have the Swoogo MCP here, Salesforce, a couple other tools. You can manage those connectors, and you can go and add custom connectors. And that's generally how you're going to set up, whether you're using Salesforce or HubSpot, Eloqua, Marketo, whatever those tools are, and any other tools in your event stack that have a custom MCP. That's generally how you're going to set those up. So just want to show that kind of lives in the same place. And so that's really the power of this. You're going to be able to ask all of those questions, pull that information into these chats, and build that context as you use the tools further. So we have some data here that we're going to show, a couple of contact-focused things that are pulling data from Salesforce and Swoogo and HubSpot, and then really tying that into pipeline. So I want to start with a prompt here, and I'll walk through this one live, but some of these prompts take quite some time to generate a response, 3-5 minutes. So I can also show the results to that, and we can skip to, the type of response that you're going to get. So in this case, I really want to see for my top 10 open opportunities in Salesforce right now, which contacts tied to those opportunities or those accounts have attended events, and what does that event attendance history really look like? So I can go ahead and ask for that. Again, there are a lot of ways that you can prompt this question. You could pull those open opportunities first. You could try to pull the event attendance history for specific contacts. or specific accounts in Salesforce, I'm doing a pretty vague prompt, but it does a really great job of going and finding that data. So the first thing you can see happening is it's going to use the Salesforce MCP. It's going to look for those top 10 open opportunities by deal size. In this case, you could also specify if you wanted some other type of parameter, and then go grab the contacts tied to those accounts and then check that event attendance. So we're going to let that run, and then I can show, the output of that same prompt, just ran it prior to this, event attendance history for the Salesforce contacts tied to my top 10 open ops. So then you get this analysis. I have, in this case, in this set of data, 11 contacts. 9 of them are found in Swoogo, and 8 of them have attended more than one event of these 3 events that were found. You can see what events were attended. You can see those contacts. You can see the account. You can see the opportunity and actually the revenue tied to that as well, or potential revenue tied to that. So just kind of a great picture, and you can really pull even more from this information and drill down into things. So I think that's a great first kind of question that you can show tying your Salesforce or your CRM data to Swoogo. You also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Yes, I can say I agree, Jessica. I think the cool thing about this is like how you can pull those data points from the different sources. And not only is it just giving you like the raw data, it's actually summarizing it for you and giving you a nice visual, which I think would have taken probably me at least a couple hours to do that on my own. So it's nice that you can do that so instantly, but feel free to keep going.
For sure. And, to your point, it gives you this nice visual. You can ask for that in a specific way as well. So this is kind of just a sample output that it's going to give you, but you could have more interactive charts. The more that you invest into the prompting, the more that you're going to get out of the responses. You get the summary and the analysis as well. So it's going to pull kind of like that top contact, in this case, the highest engagement contact, and really how that relates to your open opportunities. And then in the other case, these contacts only attended one event. And so you can kind of dig into why that is, and then look at these gaps that it calls out. So I think that's a really interesting prompt. And then just building on that, we're kind of flipping the question a little bit, is who should we be inviting to events that haven't attended? So again, this is a question that just builds on the information that we've already pulled, and we'll go and look at that event attendance history for those contacts, for those opportunities, and call out these specific people. So it's highlighted a couple of contacts and accounts here, and the deal that's associated there. So you can really see that these are people that you might want to reach out to. They maybe haven't attended any events, and you can really see those 0 event touch points, which is a great way to start to gather a little bit more data about who to reach out to. So similarly, in kind of this like contact focused, who's attending events, how are they associated with my pipeline data, you can look at your marketing side as well. So we're looking at HubSpot data, and we can look at, based on my HubSpot MCP or HubSpot information, show me an analysis of contacts who have attended an event, but they haven't opened any of my marketing emails in the last 60 days. So we're going to use this to find people that have potentially gone cold, people that you might want to reach out to, people that have never opened the emails. And so we can check first these event attendees in Swoogo. So that's how it's going to reach into the Swoogo MCP, pull those event attendees for these events, and then also pull all of your marketing campaign emails in the last 60 days and do that cross-referencing. And so in this case, again, we get like this nice visual representation of all of those contacts, the emails that they haven't opened, events that they've attended, the companies that they're associated with, and it does a little bit of analysis on that. So this is a great signal into people that we should potentially be reaching out to. And reviewing, instead of just reviewing who came, we're finding the gap, these high value contacts that we haven't really activated enough through events yet. So this is really good for event marketing planning. All right, so that's a little bit on kind of the contact side. And then we're going to focus a little bit more on some of the pipeline and revenue opportunities. So one of these prompts I want to share, I've prompted this kind of all-in-one. Again, we've talked a little bit about how you can prompt, how you can show certain types of data, and kind of how you're using that and building that information in your chat and in your AI provider. So in this case, I've asked, again, just cross-reference attendees from this specific event in Swoogo with any open opportunities in Salesforce. I've asked to match by company name or contact email, and then do some more analysis on which have open opportunities, and then include information about those opportunities and then the pipeline value across those accounts. So this is a massive prompt. There's a lot of data here again, and we can kind of see what that process looks like. So we're loading the tools. We're using the Swoogo MCP. It's pulling information. In this case, that it didn't include company names and emails. So I'm going to go ahead and get full registrant data because it needs to really process through that reg data to get the company name and the contact information. And so once we have that information, in this case, we're going to query Salesforce for those open opportunities, the contacts and the leads that match those emails, and then start to build that picture. So there's a lot of operations happening here. And I just want to call out that, you can get all of this information and try to get this information manually. It lives in your sales and marketing tools. It lives in Swoogo. So you absolutely can do that. There's just a lot of manual work in pulling those reports and doing that analysis yourself. And so if you can ask a question like this, and in some ways, like, set it and forget it and go get yourself a snack and then come back and you have this analysis built for you. It's just a really great way to use these tools. So in this prompt, you can see kind of the output here that, we had 13 attendees from that event that matched with accounts with open opportunities, 6 of those accounts, 12 open opportunities total, 2.1 million in total pipeline value associated to those. And then you can see it broken down by account, and exactly, how that lands, and a further breakdown there. So just a really great way to kind of tie that event to potential opportunities that you have in your tools.
And that type of data is gold when you can tie back and say people who are attending your events are now have X amount in open pipeline or opportunities that have been created. And Jessica, I know in our prompt, we could even refine it to say like post event, like, okay, after this event date, how many opportunities were opened or how much pipeline was created after this event. But being able to measure that and have that kind of easily accessible and tell that story back to your head of marketing, head of events, or your CFO, your CEO to get that buy-in for that budget for next year. This is just like gold.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have that attribution too of, your Salesforce integration in Swoogo, and you have campaign data that's associated to those events, you're going to get even more specifics on exactly how these events, had an impact on those deals and opportunities. So kind of drilling down even more, another question I think is really powerful. What is the average deal size for accounts where at least one contact attended an event versus accounts with no event attendance? So why is this important? Because it basically answers the question, does event attendance correlate to bigger deals? So Claude is going to do this aggregation, or our AI tool in this case, does this across both the systems, segmenting accounts by participation in Swoogo, pulling the deal values from Salesforce, and then building this comparison. So this is just another proof point for your event program, and showing how the event attendance corresponds to these bigger deals. So in this case, we've pulled this information from Salesforce and pulled out attended accounts and the associated opportunities for those, and those numbers. And you can see that the average deal size for accounts that had event attendance associated to that was 176,000 versus the average deal size of those accounts where they did not have any event attendance associated, 67,000. So it really proves that how powerful those events are in this case. All right, so we've shown some of these metrics as well, and responses. I think this is just a really kind of, again, it's a quick, and in some ways it's an easy way to get access to this data, things that would take quite some time to pull manually. You're going to be able to connect your entire event stack essentially into these AI tools. You have access to your Swoogo event data, your sales data, your marketing data. Now you're really building that entire picture of your event portfolio and how that impacts your pipeline. All right. I think that is mostly it for what we wanted to share.
Yeah, let's so I think one thing to call out too, Jessica, thanks so much for diving into the prompts and kind of showing how it all gets laid out in the AI tool. I'd say if you don't know if it's gonna, if you have a question about a certain thing, like ask it. Usually that's what I do. Like you just ask, can you pull this? Can you pull pipeline data? Can you pull revenue data? And sometimes it'll probably ask you for some clarifying questions. And I would say everyone kind of has their own setup when it comes to Salesforce or HubSpot or how you're using those tools. So it is good to kind of make sure you understand like how your attribution is set up before you go and prompt, or maybe not before, but go ahead and ask it and it will get creative. Like it might do email matching based on like registration in Swoogo and then the emails that you can find in Salesforce or in HubSpot. That's a great way to kind of allow it to connect the dots between the three tools. All right, so let's get back into the slide side. And I feel like this comes up often, and I want to just make sure we touch on it because I know many of you, when in this new world of AI, security and data privacy come up often. And I don't blame you at all. And we know many of you are using these AI tools today. It was actually really eye-opening to see on our first webinar, we asked all of our attendees during registration, how many are using AI tools? And 95% said that they're using AI tools today. Most commonly, we saw ChatGPT and Claude as the two top, which makes sense. I think most people like us, like from an event planning side, you're using those tools to help create copy, maybe like a speaker prospectus or a sponsor prospectus, or maybe you're doing a whole kind of flow of your sessions. But now it's really awesome that you have this unlock of being able to access that data in real time. But I do want to call out that it's really important to make sure you're using a business or enterprise account for your AI tool. You don't want to use a personal account when pulling in your event and revenue data. These business and enterprise tiers don't use your data to train their models. So it's important to check with your IT or AI lead, if you have one in your organization, just to make sure your team has vetted the AI tools you're using with that data privacy and security in mind. And then on the Swoogo side, the MCP server is a secure connection to the data that you already have access to. So it essentially takes your permissions in Swoogo and then mirrors those within your AI tools. And then you can query attendance, contacts, and pipeline data, but you can't write back to Swoogo or other tools unless you explicitly enable those write actions. So you're not going to like come and be destructive within these tools. It's really a way to kind of gather those insights and analyze those insights in a quicker way. And then lastly, your data is not stored by the MCP server or used to train models. Each question pulls live data and real-time answers. And then I wanted to kind of keep the thought-provoking questions around how you could use your AI tools and bring these data points together, just to end us on this slide. So we showed you some examples today, but here's just a couple other ways that you can think about analyzing that data across your events, your engagement data, and then your CRM data as well. So I'll start with the win rate lift. So one question you could prompt: what's our win rate on opportunities where one or more buying committee members attended at least one event in the last year? So this is a great way to say, okay, is our win rate 30% typically? But when people are attending an event, we're actually seeing more of a 35 or 40% win rate. That's a great metric you can lean into to potentially prove the value of your events and then get that budget for next year, or potentially push for a higher budget next year. The session ROI one, we actually look at ourselves. I think this is a great one. So which accounts that attended our new product session opened an opportunity or became a closed won deal with that product tied to it after the event? So if you are measuring, say you have add-on products that you sell, and you're demoing that in one of your events, and then you want to see, of those people that attended that event, how many people went and bought that product afterwards. It's a great way you can actually see specific revenue tied to that session. Third, format mix. So maybe you want to see how your pipeline kind of varied across different event types. So you could say, compare pipeline generated per attendee across in-person, hybrid, and virtual events over the last 4 quarters. This one I prompted and it came back, and it helped with some questions to refine how we were thinking about both attribution. It asked me, are we measuring attribution in HubSpot or Salesforce? Because it depends on how you're using those tools. You could be using either or. It also asked about how I was measuring attribution, like by first touch, last touch, or multi-touch. So we'll ask those clarifying questions before it generates a response for you. And then the last one is re-engagement. So of the attendees who attended an event in the last 3 months, which have visited our pricing page following the event. So that's looking at HubSpot. If you have forms on your pricing page, or maybe you have marketing campaigns you send with a HubSpot form tied to them, you could connect the dots there to say who attended an event and then went ahead and engaged with a marketing campaign following that event. And please share your ideas. We are like very much still in experimental mode with this. So while we wanted to give you some thought starters today, we wanted to show you how it works. Share with us what's working with you. Feel free to drop us an email. I'm Katie@swoogo.com. You can always email me with the ideas that are working for you, or drop them in chat so that everyone else can see. But we would love to hear what's working for you and maybe what's not. What are you running into as roadblocks? So we can help with that as well. So with that being said, let's see if we have any questions that have popped up that we can answer live. Hi, Michael. Deal velocity we have seen way higher with VNets. Deals. Okay. Deal velocity we have seen way higher with deals. With deals, I'm assuming you're meaning deals that are tied to events are closing at a higher velocity, which is awesome. I hope you're using the MCP server to get to some of that data as well. That would be amazing. Then we had a comment around telling the story. Oh, that was Jahan. Hi, Jahan. What's up? Telling the ROI story is so important, especially without having to do it manually. Love that. There was a question, and I know Sean got to it, but just to touch on it live, trying to pull in life cycle stages, but unless you have someone on an invite list before they register, it doesn't bring any of their stages over. If they register and then 2 months later, life cycle stage, the data is stale or doesn't update. Kaylin, that's really good feedback. And I think that's like part of like getting in and experimenting with it and seeing what works and what's not working. We should definitely dive into that a little bit more with you. Sometimes some of these prompts, like when you're prompting, it may block you, or you might need to like kind of refine the way that you're querying. So that's really good to know. And I saw Sean put the note in there that we should follow up with you directly and just kind of dive into that a little bit more one-on-one. Got another fun comment. I love all the comments. No questions yet, but if you have a question, please drop it in. I asked Claude to create a reg dashboard and post daily Slack updates to my team. So helpful and great to have a visual for everything in Swoogo. I love it. Caitlin, that's amazing. Can we see it? I mean, maybe not. You don't have to put it in the chat, but if you want to email me, I would love to see that. Okay, and then there was one around, does anyone have any example prompts related to measuring returns, retention, training value related to internal events for employees? Katie, that's a really good question. And I think the tools you connect are probably going to be slightly different because you're measuring more of that like internal retention or like the training side. This is something we're actually looking at on our own end because we use a tool called WorkRamp that we use to kind of train internal employees, but then also for external. So we're actually looking at how we can maybe use an MCP server for WorkRamp. I would say first start with what are the tools that you're using to capture the data around these metrics, whether it's retention or training value, and see if those have MCP servers and see if you can connect those into your AI tool. If you don't, then the AI piece of it might not be the right approach. Unless you wanted to kind of like download some of those metrics and then upload them. You could also do that too. But Jessica, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Just understanding the tool stack that you need to really create that picture and whether those tools are available as, you know, MCP connectors, and you can pull that information in. And then also just on the Swoogo side, understanding the data that you need to associate, you know, with your event and with your registrants so that you can be able to pull those values and make those connections. I did see a question too about have you seen Claude make some attribution errors or broad assumptions with the HubSpot and SFDC connectors? I haven't seen outright errors specifically. I can say I'm sure that it probably could make errors. These AI tools, they're not 100% foolproof all the time. The data that's underlying them, is accurate. But as we've mentioned previously, you want to double check your work when you're using these tools. It's making an analysis based on the data. But I would say definitely with the broad assumptions, that tends to happen when you are not as specific with your prompts. It will usually come back and say, hey, I want to ask some clarifying questions. So these tools have gotten really good about that, trying to avoid making these assumptions without first confirming more information. But just definitely always kind of check the output that's coming out and feel free to tell it it's wrong and, correct it, and it will try that analysis again.
Awesome. There was another great idea that came through chat too. I used the Swoogo MCP to forecast on attendance rate, and got within a 5% accuracy, which saves us a ton on food and beverage. That's a great idea. Like I'm assuming that it probably looked at past attendance rates and then basically made a prediction around what your attendance rate was going to be for this event, which allows you to get really close and then make sure you're not overspending on the people that aren't actually going to be there. Great idea, Kareem. Love that. Awesome. We'll keep the ideas coming, share them with us. I think that's all the questions we had in the chat. But we really appreciate y'all spending the time with us today, and we appreciate you being a part of this series if you join multiple. So enjoy your Thursday and enjoy your long weekends. And thank you so much for joining us.